Ladies and gentlemen, when the Washington Post publishes an article today, here's the article. It's below in the pinned in the description section. What the fight between Anthony Fauci and Rand Paul is really about. The title isn't a sensational or provocative headline. The reality is that the Washington Post isn't going to say this man is a liar. The Washington Post, even though Josh Rogan of the Washington Post is one of the people at the forefront of this story that happens to support and back up what Rand Paul and Trump have been saying since day one. So this is a rare moment in recent U.S. history where a top Washington Post journalist is focused on the truth, and the truth happens to correlate with President Trump, Rand Paul, and what's detrimental to the Democratic Party. Well, the truth actually correlates oftentimes within that paradigm, okay? Or oftentimes with that, frame of reference. Trump never worked with Russia. That was a completely fabricated tinfoil hat theory predicated upon zero direct evidence, and even Clapper and Brennan and Feinstein and everyone involved in the Democratic Party said, well, we don't have any direct evidence, but we have high to moderate confidence assessment, and here's a Steele dossier we purchased. Okay? They didn't level charges at President Trump when it came to working alongside Russian intelligence officials. They didn't indict or level charges against Trump for inciting or compelling, a terrible tragedy. They can't, in a court of law, prove their endless claims against Trump. Okay, hit subscribe to this channel right now. I'll have a live stream about 9 p.m. Pacific tonight. But what takes place is I use basic logic. So I'm going to explain to you what's going on through basic logic. If you make a claim that Trump is a criminal, there are many courts of law. Like there's the courts within New York where prosecutors are trying to go after President Trump, yet they can't indict him directly. There was the Mueller probe, which didn't find anything. Special counsel Mueller. There's a special counsel, John Durham, that's actually working now to find out how they set up and framed President Trump. That special counsel needs political backing and backing from at least some of the media, and that'll happen after 2022 when the House goes Republican. But, ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. If you want to support my work, my Patreon is below in the pinned comment. Be here at the live stream tonight at around 9 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. probably at 8 p.m. Pacific. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, go to hagoodman.com. This is an article by Josh Rogan, who is at the forefront of this, and he really is like... I'm amazed that the Washington Post would let this man actually be at the forefront of a story that really absolves Trump of the type of guilt leveled at him by Democrats. President Trump, Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, others have always stated that there's reason to be suspicious another country started all of this, or that this emanated from another country within a building or a facility that was actually funded, allegedly, or possibly, or potentially, funded through taxpayer dollars from a grant that started before President Trump was in office. And guess who was president then? President Obama. These grants and this research, these endeavors, are part of what Democrats generally consider to be these wonderful multilateral relationships, even with let's say, adversaries that will overtake us from an economic, in terms of economics, very soon, within the next 10, 15 years. We'll be third in the world, behind India and then the largest country in the world. Okay? But the largest country in the world might have inadvertently had this global catastrophe produced in a research facility that was partially funded by taxpayer dollars initially allocated in President Obama's administration, and then unfortunately renewed during President Trump's administration. But that wasn't like a Trump policy. Because that's the knock on Trump, that he doesn't want to work with other countries. And so you can't say, I mean, he was the hardest. The tariffs he imposed on the largest country in the world, the tariffs he imposed on that country, this is the only time, this is the last moment in history where we will be able to impose tariffs and actually have them work as a short-term economic tactic. Leverage. Because pretty soon they're going to overtake us economically, and there's nothing we can do about it. There's just nothing we'll be able to do about it. And Democrats, and that's one of the reasons to vote for President Trump. In addition, the main thing for me is to bring home Americans from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. But there's other reasons too. We had record low unemployment, but he also had the courage to impose these tariffs that Biden hasn't reversed. Because they're short-term economic it's a short-term economic strategy to promote leverage or to utilize leverage against a country. We have leverage at this moment, or we had before we tanked the U.S. economy and society. We had leverage. We might not anymore. But that was a moment in time where he said, "Look, there's a trade imbalance. We have a tremendous, horrendous trade deficit. We need to make things more equitable from the perspective of trade." The AFL-CIO was on board. Steel CEOs were on board. The European Union trade unions also wanted to impose tariffs. Okay, the establishment, both Democrat and Republican establishments, didn't want that. Why? Because from a political perspective, a great deal of campaign funding, especially the Democratic Party, comes from the largest country in the world. Okay. That being said, this catastrophe was not Trump's fault. If you want to blame Trump because he was there, you can also blame Fauci. He was there. He was there also. Why don't you blame all the wonderful experts who were blindsided? Why don't you blame people like Andrew Cuomo, who stated on March 1st, the risk remains low for the people of New York. March 1st. They engage in this sophomoric, vapid, political assaults on Trump, like, oh, he said it would go away by summer. He said it was a hoax. Well, he never said it was a hoax, number one. That is a lie. But let's assume that he said things that were not true. The Democrats and media never take anything he says either seriously, or they never accept anything he says anyway. They don't listen to him. So, they wanted to impeach him immediately before the crisis took hold. They wanted to literally kick him out of office right before this became a global catastrophe. So don't say you were longing for leadership when you wanted to kick him out to begin with, over the absurd notion that he had no right to investigate our beloved President Biden. And we know now from President Biden's son's emails that he had every right to ask anybody if there was criminal wrongdoing, especially a country that, let's just say, our beloved President Biden and his son potentially have a lot to do with in terms of pay-to-play schemes, potentially. But this completely obliterates the talking point that Trump fell asleep and, Rome was, people perished while he was just fiddling around doing nothing. Trump said from day one, this came from another country, and he also stated very likely it was manipulated and contrived or manufactured. He never said it was specifically a deliberate act, but he did say that, hey, this was a man-made. This was, okay, the reverence for science, if people revere science, which is apparently ever evolving in terms of what you should do and what you need to do, and then they say, well, you need to always listen to us blindly and accept everything we say because, science evolves and we find new information, but they don't give that benefit of the doubt to Trump ever. But anyway, this was, let's say, man-made or could have been man-made and could have been funded by taxpayer dollars from a previous administration, or a previous administration could have begun the funding for what was a global catastrophe. The American political establishment messed up, potentially. And Trump is the antithesis of the American political establishment. This proves him right and exonerates him in so many ways politically. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe.